Alrighty, Mr. Trutna, this is Math 2, Unit 3. This is our review worksheet. Okay, so this is the worksheet, the last worksheet before we take the test. There are 40 problems on this. I'm going to just work out as many as I can in the next 18 minutes. Okay, so number 1, we're given that triangle EFG is congruent to, and this should say triangle XYZ. Here's XYZ. We're going to find the measure of angle X. Okay, so this is the angle that we are finding right here. So what you want to do in this problem is you want to use this statement right here, which is known as a congruent statement, and you want to match up the letters in the order that they are. Because remember, the orders that these letters are written tell you exactly what parts are equal. So if I want to find the measure of angle X, the order is telling me, since X went first in the right side, that means on the left side of the statement E went first, so that means E and X have to be the same thing. So if I could find angle E, that's going to be the same as angle X. Okay, well, I can find angle E because if you notice, that angle is 60 degrees, that angle is 90 degrees, so if I add those two angles up, they add up to 150 degrees, and then the three angles in a triangle have to add up to 180, so if I take away 150 from 180, 30 degrees. So that means this angle right here has to be 30 degrees, which means that the measure of angle X also has to be 30 degrees. So that would be number 1. Okay, number 2, the measure of angle R and the measure of angle W are both 35 degrees. So let's mark that. Angle R is 35 degrees. Angle W is 35 degrees. The measure of angle V and the measure of angle S are both 72 degrees, so let's mark that. S is 72, V is 72, and R to T, so side R to T, is congruent to side U to W, so I'm going to put a tick mark there, and I'm going to put a tick mark here, and that means U to W has to be 3, because side R to T is 3. What is the length of side V to U? Okay, so this is the side that we want to find right here. And I'll outline it in green. So what you want to do is you want to say to yourself, you want to go, okay, so if you notice, these two triangles have two equal angles. They also have an equal side. So because of the angle side rule, that means that triangle, and I'm going to name this triangle right here as WUV, is going to be congruent to triangle, and then I'm going to name this triangle, but I'm going to match up the letters. So W matches up with R. Alright, U doesn't have any number in it, so that's going to match up with T. And then V, which is 72 degrees, is going to match up with S. Okay, so I want to find the length of V to U. So notice, in my order that I wrote my letters, V to U is the second and the third letter, so that's going to match up with side T to S. T to S is 5, so that means that V to U is also going to be 5. So there's the answer to number 2. Rather lengthy explanation, but I'm trying to walk you through it. Number 3, to prove triangle KLM is congruent to triangle KLN, which triangle postulate could you use? So to give you a visual of this, it's asking that we want to prove that this triangle right here, okay, the green one, is congruent to triangle KLN, which I am outlining in orange. So those are the two triangles we want to prove. And then it's asking for which postulate could you use, okay? So if you forgot what that means, the postulates are, postulate just means a rule. And remember, there were 5 rules that show that we could use to show one triangle is congruent to another triangle. These are the 5 rules right here. Side, 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 angle, side, angle, side, angle, 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 side, and hypotenuse, leg. Okay, so let's go to our picture and let's see exactly what is congruent. So if you notice, in the green triangle we have a mark here, and in the orange triangle we have a mark here. So that means we have a pair of equal angles. I'm going to put an A there. We also have 2 marks in the orange and 2 marks in the green triangle, so that means we have another pair of angles. Okay, and then based on the given marks, that's all that we have, that we know is congruent for sure. Okay, well there is no AA rule, as you can see. It has to be one of these, so I have to find more information. And you should notice that this side right here, side K to L, it is equal to itself in both triangles. So I have a side, okay? So I have two angles and a side that are clearly equal to each other in both triangles. Two angles and a side means it could be angle side angle, or it could be angle angle side. Notice an angle side angle, the side is in between the two angles. And notice in the picture, the side is in between the two angles. So the answer to number 3 would be angle side angle. That would be the postulate I could use to prove that the two triangles are congruent. Number 4, name all corresponding congruent parts. Given triangle RST is congruent to triangle FEG, and then we want to write another congruent statement. Okay, so let's start with the sides. So remember, the order that the letters are written tell us what sides are the same, even though we don't have a picture. So this is telling me that side R to S, the first two letters, is going to be congruent to side F to E, the first two letters. The second and the third letters tell me that side ST is congruent to the second and the third letter, which would be side EG. Okay, then we look at the first and the third letter, which tells me that side RT is congruent to the first and the third letter, which would be side FG. Okay, looking at the angles, I just look at the letters. So the first letter is R, so that tells me that angle R is congruent to the first letter, angle F. Okay, remember this statement right here is what is known as a congruent statement, and it tells me all the parts that are congruent. The second letter is S, so that's telling me that angle S is congruent to the second letter, angle E. The third letter is T, so that is telling me that angle T is congruent to angle the third letter, which would be angle G. Okay, so that's how we would do that. Now, we want to write another congruent statement, so all we do to write another congruent statement is you take these letters, okay, instead of RST, rearrange them in any order you want. I'll go ahead and write it as triangle STR. And then we want to make sure we match up the letters correctly. So as you can see, S is the second letter, so the second letter is E, but if I make S the first letter, that means E has to be the first letter. Okay, T is the second letter here, but over here, T, the third letter, matches up with G, so if I make T the second letter, I have to match it up with G. Okay, R, the first letter in this statement, matches up with F, so if R is the third letter, that would be F. So that would be another possibility. Okay? Alright, number 5. Choose all corresponding congruent statements given triangle MON is congruent to triangle PQR. So once again, they give us this congruent statement right here, and that tells me all the sides and all the angles that are congruent. And we're going to choose all of these that I guess are true. It didn't really say that. We're going to choose all corresponding congruent statements. So the measure of angle M is congruent to the measure of angle P. M is first, P is first. Number A would work. B, side ON, the second and the third letter, is congruent to side QR, the second and the third letter. That is a corresponding congruent statement. Third one, C, MM side, first and third letter, is congruent to PO, and there's not even an O in this problem, or in that statement over there, so there's no way C could be a congruent statement. Okay, triangle NOM is congruent, and that should be the triangle symbol there, a typo. Congruent to triangle RQP, let's see. So N matches up with R, N with R, that's good. O's matching up with Q, O's matching up with Q, that's good. M is matching up with P, you can see here M and P. So D would be okay. E, the measure of angle O, the second letter, is congruent to the measure of angle R, which is the third letter. E is not a congruent statement. Okay, last one, F, triangle ONM is congruent to triangle RPQ. So O, they have matching up with R. O does not match up with R. O matches up with Q, so there's no way that could be. So A, B, and D would be number 5. Number 6, in the diagram, what is the measure of angle DCN? By definition of congruence, what additional information is needed to know that triangle NDC is congruent to triangle NSR. So there are two bits of information we need to find in this problem. The first one is, let's find the measure of angle DCN. So to figure out where DCN is, we have a D, we go to C, we take a turn for N, so we were talking about that angle right there. Okay, well what angle does angle, and that's angle C basically, but what angle does angle DCN match up with but over here in this triangle? Okay, well you can notice it matches up with the 75. So the measure of angle DCN is going to be 75. Then the second part is, what additional information is needed to know that triangle NDC is congruent to triangle NSR? Okay, so what additional information do we need to know? So if you remember, triangles are congruent only if all the sides are congruent. So this would be additional information. Only if all the sides are congruent and two of the three angles are congruent. That was like the original definition we did of the definition of congruence. Remember we said all the sides are congruent. So we know that side C to N is the same as side R to N, but additional, we would need to know that side C to D is congruent to side R to S. We would also need to know that side D to N is congruent to side S to N. Okay, so that would then give me all the sides are congruent. And then we would also need to know that that angle is congruent to that angle, so we would need to know that angle DNC is congruent to this angle here, and that would be angle SNR. Okay, so that would be the additional information we would need to know. All right, flipping the page over to number 7. In the diagram, DEFG is congruent to SPQR. You can see they're not triangles. These are actually four-sided shapes. We want to find the value of X in A, and in B we want to find the value of Y. Okay, so let's find out where is the X. So if you notice right here, we have this side right here has a 2X plus 4 in it. Okay, and that is side D to R. All right, well, is that a Q to R? Sorry. Q and R, if you notice, are the third and the fourth letter. So that means they're going to be the same as side F to G, which is right here, F to G, and that's 12. So in order to find X, you would take this side, which is 2X minus 4, and you would make it equal to that side F to G, which is 12. And then we would add 4 to solve for X. We would use algebra. Add 4 to both sides. That would give me 2X is equal to 16. Then we would divide both sides by 2. Therefore, X would be equal to 8. Okay, now we're going to find the value of Y. Well, if you notice, Y is in this angle right here. So this angle has a 6Y minus X in it, and that is angle Q. And Q is the third letter, so that means it's going to be the same as angle F. And angle F is right here, which is 68 degrees. Okay, so we know that angle Q is going to be equal to angle F. Angle Q is represented by 6y minus x. So that would be 6y minus x, and that's going to be equal to angle F is represented by 68. Okay, I'm going to do the work over here. But we just found x out that x was 8. So we could change this x to an 8. So that means 6y minus 8 is going to be equal to 68. And then we use this equation to find the value of y. Okay, by adding 8 to both sides, that would cancel out the 8s and give me a new equation of 6y is equal to 76. Then we would divide both sides by 6, and that would give me my answer for y. So whatever 76 divided by 6 is, I'm using a calculator right now, 12.6. And the 6 just keeps repeating itself over and over again. So that would be the answer to number 7. Sorry, there was a pause. I had to walk around the classroom and wave my hands. The lights turned off. Number 9. Find the value of x. So number 9, we're going to find the value of x right here, and you will notice that we have particular marks, okay? So this angle where the 5x is angle R, and if you notice, it doesn't have a mark in it, so that means it has to match up with angle C. Okay, so we know for sure that angle R is going to be equal to angle C. We know angle R is represented by 5x, but angle C we don't know. But we could mathematically find angle C. So the way we would find angle C is we would add up 80 and 45. That's 125, so those two angles add up to 125, which means that if I take that away from 180, because the three angles in a triangle add up to 180, that gives me 55. So angle C has to be 55 degrees. So that means 5x, which is angle R, is equal to 55. And to solve for x, I divide both sides by 5. Therefore, x is equal to 11. Okay, all right, moving on. Numbers 10 through 18. The instructions say, choose the postulate or theorem you would use to prove each pair of triangles congruent. That's part A. And part B says, write a congruent statement. If there is not enough information, write not enough information. Okay? So in part A it says, choose the postulate or theorem. Now remember, you would use to prove each pair of triangles congruent. So what we're talking about here, the postulate or theorem, is one of those 5 rules. Side, 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 angle, side, angle, side, angle, 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 side, or hypotenuse leg. We're trying to see. So in number 10, we're first of all going to mark, we're going to denote what we know. So notice, that side is the same as that side. So I have an S. I'm just going to write it up here. That side is the same as that side, so I have another S. So if you notice, based on the marks in number 10, I have 2 sets of equal sides. There is no SS, postulate, or theorem, or rule. Okay, so I need to find out more information. And number 10, you hopefully see that this angle and this angle, these are vertical angles. Vertical angles are always equal. So that means I have an A. Okay, so I have 2 sides and an A. So that means it's going to be side, angle, side if the angle is in between the 2 sides, and it is. So A, number 10A, would be side, angle, side. That would be my postulate or theorem that I would use to prove the triangles are congruent. And then in B it said write a congruent statement. Okay, so I'm going to write a congruent statement. So I'm going to put the triangle symbol, then I'm going to name the triangle on the left. Okay, I have an R, I have an S, and I think that's a Q. I'm going to put those in any order I want. I'm going to go R, S, Q. So triangle R, S, Q. Then I'm going to put the congruent symbol, and then I'm going to put the triangle sign, and then I'm going to name this other triangle. Okay, and I have to match up. So side RS, the first 2 letters, what does it match up with? Well, it could match up actually with US or TS. I'm going to say TS. Okay, so that means then Q would have to match up with U. So that would be a congruent statement there. Okay, number 11. Let's see what we know about number 11. So in number 11, if you notice right away, both triangles have 90-degree angles in them. So we know that in number 11, there are right triangles, okay? So whenever you get right triangles, the first postulate or theorem or rule you try is the HL theorem. Because remember, HL is a special theorem that only works in right triangles. So HL says the hypotenuses will be equal, and you could see the hypotenuses are equal. Those are the double tick marks. And then it says either one of the legs would be equal, and either one of those legs are equal. There's a single tick mark. So in number 11, the postulate or theorem or the rule would be HL. Okay, and then we're going to write our congruent statement. So I'm going to say triangle. I'm going to put the triangle symbol. Then I'm going to name this triangle, the D, the F, the E, in any order I want. I'm going to go D, F, E. Why not? Okay, so triangle D, F, E. You don't have to put it in alphabetical order if you don't want to. Good job. Some of you should have been thinking, Mr. Trutna, that's not in alphabetical order. So you guys are paying attention. Then I'm going to match it with triangle, and I'm going to match the letters up. So what matches up with D but over here? Okay, that would have to be H. So what you want to do is in your mind, you want to place this triangle on top of that triangle so it fits like a puzzle. D would match up with H, so H has to go first. I wrote F second. What would match up with F? It would be F in the other triangle. And then I wrote E third. What would match up with E? That would be G. So that could be a congruent statement that you could write. All right, for number 11. Number 12. All right, let's first of all put down what we know. So we know that that side and that side are equal, so I have a side. Okay, I've got these double tick marks here that tells me I have another side. And then based on all the marks, I don't have any other information. Once again, there is no SS rule. Okay, I'm looking for one of these 5 rules up here. So there's got to be more information, and you should see that this side right here, M to P, or P to M, is equal to itself in both triangles. So that means I actually have a third side. So my postulate or theorem for number 12 is side, side, side. Okay, now I'm going to write the congruent statement. So I'm going to go triangle, put the triangle symbol, and then I'm going to name this top triangle. Let's go with MNP. MNP. Then I'm going to put the congruent symbol, and I'm going to put the triangle symbol, and I'm going to name it. Now remember, the idea is I want to think about this triangle here, and I want to think about if I took it and placed it on top of the other triangle, where would M land? Where would that angle land? Okay, well it would land over here on top of P. So P has to go first. Now how do I know that? One way that I check is, notice that angle there where the M is between the 1 tick mark and the 3 tick mark. So that would have to match up with P, which is between the 1 and the 3 tick mark. Okay, N is over here. N would match up with, I think that's a Q. Okay, and then the third letter P, which would be that angle up there, it would match up with that angle down here, which we would use as M. So that could be my congruent statement for number 12.